Hello and welcome to the second version of the predictions show for the 2024-25 Bundesliga season. As you can see, I'm joined by Peter Weiss over there in the US and myself, Mark Broadhurst, here in Germany. So obviously second week of the season, the first week was fantastic. We've had cup matches this week as well with predictable wins for Stuttgart and Leverkusen, but obviously particularly the latter didn't have it all their own way in Jena by any means. So we've got a really, really fun-looking fixture list for you today. And, a lot of games I feel that are quite evenly matched this weekend, and a lot of games that, the result is far from clear in a lot of these matches for me. Hello to Justin as well. Great to see you checking in from Australia, the land down under. Our RB Leipzig fan as well. He has his own podcast, so check that out as well, guys. I'm sure Justin would happily put a link to that in there as well. So Peter, without further ado, let's kick off with the Friday night game, and it's the battle of the hipsters, isn't it? It's FC Union Berlin against FC St. Pauli. Yeah. I mean, you're going to see a lot of hipsters at this game, I'm sure of it. But from a footballing perspective, it looks exciting, doesn't it? I mean, two sides that are not really tipped to do that well this season, let's be honest. I think most people had them down in the bottom third or even bottom quarter of the table, really, these two sides for this season. But, Union Berlin got a good point away at Mainz. I felt as though they finished that game well, particularly with Laszlo Benish. Particularly looking good off the bench. Pauli, on the other hand, he created chances, but ultimately fell way short against Heidenheim in a game that, a lot of people were tipping them to win as well. So they'll be disappointed with that one. But, they've got the trip to Berlin, and I just feel as though Pauli are going to struggle this season. I'm going to be honest. I don't really like the look of Gulagi. Yeah, I'm sure Peter's going to have a field day with that pronunciation. But he didn't look that good. I'm not overly convinced by Eggestein either. And I just feel as though they lack firepower big time. I would like to see the likes of Afolayan starting sad in this game. I do think we'll see changes in this match. But will it be enough to score a goal against a compact Union Berlin side? For me, no. I don't see this being a thrilling game, but it'll be exciting. It'll be hard fought. I'm going to go for a 2-0 home win for Union Berlin. Peter Weiss, what do you think?
Well, a pleasure to be with you, Mark, as always. And on our first prediction show together for the new season, we sync up exactly on our first match. That is also my tip, a 2-0 win for FC Union Berlin. It's interesting that you brought up some of the problems that St. Pauli are having, because when Rory and I did the welcome show a few weeks back, I was very, very high on St. Pauli. But they have not gotten off to a good start at all. And what's happening is that Alexander Blessin is set to make some major tactical changes. What didn't work last week? An awful lot. It looks to be the case that both Philipp Troy and Lars Witzka are going to be rotated out of the wing-back position. Guila Vogi, who you did fine, Mark. Don't worry about it. He is also probably going to be rotated out of the starting 11, and there's been some talk that Simon Zola is going to start. That's not good news. Meanwhile, Bo Svensson's Union, it was not an impressive debut. His tactics were god-awful against Mainz in the first half, but it looks to be the case that he learned his lesson. We have basically Laszlo Benis and probably also newly acquired Stuttgart attacker Wu Yongzhong being inserted directly into the 11. And probably Tim Skarka is going to start as well. The only concern I have about Union is that Kevin Vogt, the defensive anchor, is banged up, but I think Querfeld can handle it. It's a home match, and I'm also tipping a 2-0 win. Very, very sorry to see St. Pauli get off to such a disorganized start to the campaign because they do have a lot of talent. But basically, I think they're in for a painful phase right now as the newly appointed trainer, Alexander Blessens, gets his tactics sorted out.
Yeah, it usually takes a bit of time for the promoted sides to get going. I think even Hoffenheim struggled for the first couple of games. Heidenheim, I should say, for the first couple of games last season before going on to have a stellar season in the end. Ballum agrees. Ballum thinks the new manager needs time. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think they'll improve, but the thing is, they actually start quite well. A lot of the early fixtures are quite winnable. That's the problem. So if they lose all those games, then you're going to have like the big boys coming up, and it's going to be tough if they have a really poor Hinrunde. So a lot of work to do for the Hamburg side. Anyway, let's move on to the Saturday game. So talking to teams that started poorly, VfB Stuttgart, who were probably the kind of disappointment of match day one, really, with basically getting battered really by Freiburg. I mean, nobody can argue that the home side deserved to win that match. Against Mainz, who were okay against Union, probably should have had the game killed before Union had mounted that late recovery really once Benesch came on. But, Stuttgart much better in the midweek, though. I've got to say they were much better. Stiller got on the score sheet as well, which was great to see. I think Voltemade as well, who is going to be an interesting signing. Will he start in this game? We'll have to wait and see. But, it presents a decent opportunity to win, to get back to winning ways for the VfB. And I've tipped them to do exactly that. I think Mainz will be fine this season under Bo Henriksen, but I feel as though, there's been a bit of rotation in that side over the summer, the likes of Gruder leaving and a few new faces coming in. I would like to see more of Sieb as well this week. But yeah, I feel as though the home side will get back to winning ways. I think they still have defensive problems. There's no question about that. But I'm going to go for a 3-1 win with probably Dennis Undav getting at least one goal in this one. What do you think, Peter?
I am going to. We sync up again. Exactly. Wow. This is. We should notify Kreskin as we are thinking along the same lines. Yes, lots of big news concerning Stuttgart today. Angelo Stiller has been nominated for the German national team. In addition to that, Henri Chase, this young 20-year-old Japanese-American defender, has been guaranteed to start by Sebastian Hoeneß in a weekend fixture. So we're going to see what this young kid is made of. As you correctly pointed out, everything went right for them in the Pokal match, with Voltemade serving as a service striker below Amadin Demirovic. Also, another young lad who none of us have heard of, this Rieder, Fabian Rieder kid, did well on the right wing opposite Chris Führig. Stiller brought a lot of stability to the midfield when he was deployed along Atakan Karatso in the 6-6 setup. I think that you'll see that again. And I think that you'll see very, very organized, good play out of the back from Stuttgart, led by Alexander Nübel, of course. And I'm predicting a big match for Chase. So I should point out that Mainz have also had a great transfer window, and they have signed another South Korean international today, this Hyung-Sok Hong. And I can't wait to see the double buttressing support axis with Jae-Sung Lee and this kid Hong. We're going to have this Taeguk warrior access with Mainz. It's really going to be cool. But it's too early for that just yet. I don't think that Hong can start after just being signed today. So 3-1 victory. We are on the same page in both matches.
Yeah, and Justin agrees as well. Justin thinks that they haven't hit the stride yet, but they'll better do better for Rory in match day 2. Yeah, of course, I'm sure Rory will be watching that game closely. And speak of the devil as well. And Stuttgart to win the Champions League. Yeah. Obviously, the draw was made for that as well today, but we'll probably talk more about that on the Monday show, I would imagine, this week. But yeah, obviously, Stuttgart back in the Champions League. That's really something to kind of fire them up ahead of this game against Mainz on Saturday. So yeah, let's move on to the next game. And it's tradition against money, isn't it? Eintracht Frankfurt against TSG Hoffenheim. I mean, Frankfurt have been tipped up to do pretty well this season, especially Ekitike is a player that a lot of people are really looking out for this year to really fire in the goals. But he wasn't able to do it on the opening day, was he? Obviously. But a lot of people are saying they were a bit underwhelmed by the Frankfurt performance in the Signal Iduna Park. But to be honest, if Chaibi had scored that open net, really, after about 70 minutes or so, they would have gone 1-0 ahead into the last 20 minutes. So let's not be too hard on them. It was a relatively compact performance, although they did lack the flair. And, they are going to be looking for a lot more in this game against a Hoffenheim side who pretty weak defensively. I mean, obviously they are making signings now. They're expected to bring in a few tonight and tomorrow, but it's probably going to be too early for them this particular match. So I would imagine we're probably going to see the likes of Stach again at centre back. I mean, I noticed Bully News actually put him in their team of the week. He did a pretty good job for what is possible for him as a midfielder. But I mean, of course, they're going to want proper defenders in there at the back, and I'm sure Peter will be happy that former Hoffenheim man John Anthony Brooks has ended up at Hertha Berlin as well. So they can't get him back on a free after all, much to our disappointment here in the top tier. But yeah, I do believe Frankfurt will come good in this game. I feel as though, they've got a lot of quality in that side. Shaqiri as well, holding that midfield is just so good. They will miss Pacho at the back, though, I've got to say. I feel as though he is a big loss. It's kind of gone under the radar a little bit. I mean, he was their best defender last season and obviously gone on to PSG in the end, which is a good move for him. I'm sure for his bank account as well. But anyway, I do believe that Frankfurt will score goals and create chances in this match, and I'm going to go for another 3-1 home win. Peter?
Well, we have our first disagreement here. I actually, I think it's interesting that you gave Frankfurt credit for that rather uninspiring performance against Dortmund in the Saturday evening Topspiel last week. The problem that we have with Frankfurt, of course, is that I was watching Dino Topmüller's press conference, and I know you have your disagreements with him as well. And he was talking about some squad rotations that didn't make a great deal of sense. He's talking about bringing in Niels Nkunku, Ansgar Knauf, and also this Igor Matanovic, the new signing. Right. I don't think that constitutes good news at all. And when it comes to Hoffenheim, we have Hanak, one of the new acquisitions, is going to be available for the back three. So the back three should potentially be able to stabilize. Stach, Drexler, and Akpoguma actually did a very good job, I think, in the back three last week, except for some lapses in concentration near the end of the match. And a lot of the new Hoffenheim signings have had a chance to ingratiate themselves in training. That includes Lotzek, that includes Tabakovic, if need be. Hoffenheim are spending money like drunken sailors. I wrote an article today in which and I was talking about this on the Monday pod as well. I think we have a potential 50+1 violation for the new 50+1 club, and I want everybody to keep an eye on that story, because I think that Hoffenheim are being illegally pumped with some money against the rules by club patron Dietmar Hopp. So that's bad news. And further bad news, I do believe that Hoffenheim is going to bring out a 2-0 victory over Frankfurt here. So we definitely differ on this point.
That would be a big result, yeah. But definitely Frankfurt got work to do under Topmüller at the minute. So yeah, let's move on to probably one of the more, appealing looking games of the weekend, Werder Bremen versus Dortmund. I mean, I felt as though Bremen played pretty well last week in what was an entertaining draw against Augsburg. Some really good football from both sides in that match and some good goals. I feel as though Bremen, it might not be the most, luxury roster that they've got there, but they do play well under Werner. And I feel as though it's a team that is going to finish roundabout in the top half this season for me. And they tend to be a strong home team as well. As for Dortmund, I think, Peter, you mentioned it a few times. I'm not really convinced by Sahin at all so far from what I've seen. I mean, I don't know. I'm still gutted about the whole Terzic situation. A man who punched way above his weight, as far as I'm concerned, and the very least deserved another year to see what he can do. He was just a game away from a league title and a Champions League with an average squad at the end of the day. I mean, they backed Sahin a lot more, haven't they? I mean, they have a good roster now, the likes of Bayer, Gurasi, who obviously is injured at the minute. But, I mean, it's been a well-backed roster. I mean, Pascal Gross could even be the signing of the season, potentially, alongside Emre Can in that midfield. So I feel as though it's a game they should win, but come on, let's play a striker, for God's sake, Sahin, yeah? Because, I mean, you've got so many good players. I mean, even Haller, if he's not ready to start the new guys yet, Come on, at least play Haller like a proper big target man up front. But regardless of the kind of indecision over the manager, I still think they'll get a narrow 2-1 win in this game. Peter?
Well, Dortmund is very much the black box of what we have going on tactically in this young season. I don't think I've had a chance to unleash a tactical rant on Dortmund just yet. You mentioned the fact that Sahin's not playing a natural striker. We've had these experiments at wing-back involving Gittens and then also Daniel Mahlen that didn't necessarily work out. The midfield with Emre Can and Pascal Gross is very exciting. Or at least it was in the cup round. I think it was a little bit more mediocre in the league debut last time around. And the back three is very solid with Waldemar Anton, Nico Schlotterbeck back in form, and a player we love to make fun of for his weight problems, Niklas Süle, who has been subjected to an off-season training regimen, and he looks to be strong. Sahin dropped strong hints at his presser that both Gittens and new signing Maximilian Bayer will play from the start this time. So I think he's going to deploy a natural striker at this juncture, I should say. And with Bremen, we have some potential squad rotations. I think that he's probably going to start in Jinma over KK Top, who had a great Pokal round but was more mediocre in the league. So I think that with all of the experimentation that's going on here with the two formations, and I'm going to project a 3-4-3 for Dortmund and probably a 3-3-2-2 for Bremen, I think we actually get a lot of mistakes and we get a very entertaining 2-2 draw out of this one.
Interesting, yeah. So moving on to the next one, which is another interesting fixture between obviously a Nord Rhine-Westphalen derby between two sides who really nobody's got any idea how they're going to do this season at this stage. I mean, Gladbach have just been the team that have disappointed for years now, basically. I mean, they've had pretty much 4 straight underwhelming seasons, and they seem to sink closer and closer every year to the relegation dogfight as well. So despite the impressive performance last week, there will still be worries about the fact they weren't able to get some kind of results last week in a game where they played well. And defensively, they still look dodgy, really. I mean, Elvedi makes mistakes pretty much every game. There's still a few questions for me over the goalkeeper position. I mean, Omlin hasn't really proven himself to be absolutely top draw. I think he's a step up on Nicolas from last season. But, I mean, obviously, he spent a lot of time injured. And, yeah, he doesn't strike me as a top-level keeper in many ways. So the defence is a worry. But obviously, Sturger and Kleindienst really, really impressed on debut. The likes of Weigl, they do have a lot of quality in midfield, although it looks as though Kone is potentially going to be off and pretty much definitely won't play any part in this game. For Bochum, it just depends on whether those signings are going to come good, doesn't it? Because, I mean, Peter's tipped them up this season. Peter is really confident they're going to do okay. The likes of Sissoko, particularly, is a player who has excited a few people. A bit of a transfer coup, really, for the Ruhr-Pott side. But, I mean, this is an impossible game to tip, really, because, traditionally a strong home side, Bochum, but the home form completely skydived, really, the back end of last season. They didn't really win any home games in the run-in. They've got a lot of work to do to get the fans back on side, I feel, Bochum, because by the end of last season, they just weren't happy at all. And, some of the work in the transfer window will have got a few people excited, and the opening performance was good without being spectacular. But just based on last week's performance, I am going to go for a Gladbach here. I think that Gladbach will be able to get a result, but this is the kind of game that could literally be 3-0 Bochum, 3-0 Gladbach, or 2-2, to be honest. But I am going to go for a 2-1 away win in this one. Peter?
Well, thank you very much to Balam for presaging my VfL Bochum tactical rant. And I will tip Bochum to get an unexpected result here, and I'll give you some reasons behind this. I believe that Danny de Witt is finally fit, and he's ready to debut in the 10 slot, which was Kevin Sturger's old place. I think there'll be some rotations in the attacking core with Baudu and Balde potentially starting above Philipp Hoffmann and Brzezinski. Sissoko continues to impress. He's impressed me in his competitive appearances thus far and also training camp. And I think Medic did a good job at the back debuting last week. So this Bochum transfer window, I think, is rounding into form. And it's going to be a lot of fun to watch some of the individual positional battles in this one, particularly Kevin Sturger versus Danny de Witt. This is Kevin Sturger against his former club playing the man who is supposed to replace him. And as a result, I think you're going to get a 1-1 draw out of this. And I'm also basing this on the fact that Seoane, I think, wants to stick with Alisson Play as the left buttressing attacker, despite the fact that he had a very, very poor performance last week. If Seoane decides to start Ngumu, I think your boy, our Robin Hack, is not quite fit yet. But if he goes with Ngumu overplay, it could be a different result. But I'm thinking hard-fought 1-1 draw.
Yeah, Ballum's actually gone for a Bochum win as well. He believes that Bochum can win this. Now, one of those old-school 1-0 wins, yeah. But it's an interesting game, this. I'm definitely going to be looking out for this one and seeing what the result is, because I think this will tell us a lot more about both of these sides, rather than the opening games, which are obviously difficult for both sides, ultimately, where they were big underdogs. So, yeah, talking of underdogs, Holstein Kiel, I mean, a team who... many would say on paper it looks a decent result, a 3-2 defeat at Hoffenheim. But I actually felt the first half they just didn't compete at all. And they were too defensive. Second half was much better, and they scored 2 good goals, 2 well-worked strikes. So they can score goals at this level. But Wolfsburg, another one. I mean, talk about topsy-turvy performance from Wolfsburg last week. I mean, first half, they just got a runaround. I think their XG at the half-time was about 0.07, which is just crazy. But by full-time, it was like 2.3 or something. So, I mean, it was definitely a performance of 2 halves, which ultimately they lost. But this is a game that, they'll fancy winning. It won't be easy going to Kiel on their first ever Bundesliga home game as well. It's going to be hard for them. It's going to be probably a bit windy in Kiel as well. Very, very far north city. It is a northern derby, actually, this one, because Wolfsburg is also relatively north, but not as north as Kiel, clearly. I'm not sure this is going to be a pretty match, in truth. I feel as though Wolfsburg know they have to win this game to get the fans back on side and behind Hasenhüttl, who obviously criticised the fans last week as well for being pretty quiet. They'll be a lot louder at this game. I think they'll take a good away following up to Kiel. But for me, I have to stick with the tips that I gave on the promo for this show. And I think it's going to be a 1-0 Wolfsburg win for me. Peter, any thoughts?
Yes, in the promo, I tipped a 1-1 draw. So I'm looking at another surprise here. I got a lot of draws coming in this second round of the Bundesliga, which is actually not uncommon for any league. Oftentimes, there's a lot of draws in the second round. But it looks to be the case that I think that Kiel, they did a lot better towards the end of last week when they ditched that back 7. So there is some offensive impetus possible there when that back 7 moves up and it becomes a more natural formation, including from who is sure to be one of our favorite players here, Shuto Machino, who I gave permission on the Monday pod. Everybody can call him Shuto Machino if they like. It's perfectly fine. In any rate, Wolfsburg, Hasenhüttl, I'm with. I mean, when he criticized the fans like that, it almost seemed to me like he didn't know what he was signing up for. And this is an overly complex trainer. 4 years in the Premiership will do that to somebody that he wants to manage and micromanage the team. And I think he's been talking about putting Salih Özcan directly into the midfield for a cold start in this one. And that's one of the reasons why I'm going to tip a 1-1 draw. I agree with you wholeheartedly, though. I just don't find this is not going to be the prettiest match. You may want to check out one of the other 15-30 kickoffs if you're having difficulty deciding.
Yeah, definitely. Then talking of a game that is probably going to be one for the eyes, feast for the eyes, so to speak, is Leverkusen versus Leipzig. I mean, obviously both of these games last year were 3-2 wins for the Werkself. And I think, there's going to be goals in this as well. Obviously, Leipzig are really hungry this season, aren't they? I mean, for me, I think they've kind of looked at Leverkusen and thought, if we show ambition, the same ambition as what Javi's boys did, we can win the Bundesliga this year. And I feel as though Leipzig, they've only really lost Olmo, and they brought in a lot of players too. They brought in the young Belgian from Atletico Madrid, the link with other players too. I mean, I've never seen Leipzig. I mean, obviously, I know they're a team with money, but normally they sell a lot of players too. I know potentially Simakan has been linked with a move out, but that probably won't worry them too much because they are more of an attacking side typically. I mean, Orban will be missing this game, which is going to be a big problem for them as well, particularly if Simakan is potentially sidetracked as well. That could be an issue defensively. Talking of issues defensively, I feel as though Leverkusen haven't really shown themselves defensively so far this season. I mean, we saw them in the Super Cup look a little bit lax defensively. I don't feel as though Sober has been himself at all so far this season. And Tar has been better, but he's always got that kind of sideshow of the whole move to Bayern, which is very unlikely, pretty much not going to go ahead of this match. So I would imagine Jonathan Tar will be out there alongside Sober. But it's a game that both sides I feel believe they can win, to be honest. And I think Leipzig will go to Leverkusen believing they can take the 3 points and finally end Leverkusen's long unbeaten run. I mean, Leverkusen were putrid in the game against Jena, by the way. I mean, that's probably the worst I've seen them play in well over a year, probably under Javi altogether, I would say. I mean, against a fourth league side, they were lucky to avoid extra time, in truth, with a strong 11 as well, let's be honest. So, yeah, but at the end of the day, they were still good last week, really, against Gladbach. They created bags of chances, and on another day, they could have scored probably 4 or 5, really. But I'm going to stick with my prediction on the promo, and I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. I think there will be chances in this, and I think Leipzig will definitely get a goal or two through the likes of Simmons or Penda, Šeško. But I believe that Leverkusen, we could see a late equaliser potentially in this one as well. So, Peter, what are you going for?
Well, I tipped a 3-2 win for Leverkusen, and that was kind of based on the fact that it was more of a gut feeling. The problem is with this game, you have so many different moving components, so many different formations and constellations possible on a tactical level from both coaches who are dealing with injuries, suspensions, new additions, and things like this. I guess I just went with the same scoreline that we got in the match day opener between these two sides last season. And of course, that was also the start of the, as you correctly pointed out, the Hinrunde. It was also a 3-2. So, a 3-2 victory for Leverkusen. It's just, it just has the feel of that because there's so many things that are running around. You can look at this match from so many different angles. But I'm just going to go with the same score line as previously because you have these two title contending sides, and I think it just plays out exactly the way it's played out the last two fixtures.
Yeah, and Justin informing us as well that Lucas Klostermann will take over from Willy Orban. Yeah, but for me, it's quite a big step down, really. Klostermann ahead of Willy Orban, who's been the kind of marshalling leader of that team for a number of years now. Anyway, yeah, let's move on to the Sunday game. So we've got an interesting derby, really. I mean, this is like the derby that's not really a derby. I mean, geographically, it's definitely a derby. I think only 30, 40 kilometers separating these two sides. But, I mean, historically, I think they've barely played, really, at least in the last 20, 30 years. Obviously, last season, Augsburg did the double over Heidenheim as well, including a 5-2 win in Heidenheim. So, Heidenheim will have a bit of revenge on the table here, but I feel as though both sides look good, really, in the first. So far, Heidenheim have been really, really good. And despite having a complete overhaul, I think they've looked good. And, some people have questioned the kind of opponents they played, really. They played Pauli and then, Hacken in the Europa League. By the way, they are winning 1-0 at halftime as well. So barring a collapse there, we will be seeing Heidenheim in the Conference League stage this season as well, which is quite interesting. But for me, Augsburg, I mean, they played well last week and they scored 2 really good goals as well. I mean, the Rex Bahai effort was possibly the goal of the week for me. And I do like Ascender as well. He's another potentially a great striker in replacement for Demirovic. I mean, he scored a good goal, was unlucky not to have another as well, and he was just a constant threat for Werder Bremen last week. I think based on the fact that Heidenheim played a lot of games already in the season, I know we've already seen Schmidt rotate quite a lot as well, and he will go strong in this game. But I feel as though this game is more made for Augsburg, in truth. And I think it'll be fun. I think there'll be a lot of chances, probably a lot of missed chances from both of these sides too. But I'm going to go for a 2-1 FCA win. Peter? Oh, you're on mute there, Peter. You're on mute.
My apologies. Yes, very interesting. I actually am going to go for the inverse scoreline because I think the Aalbogen club is pumped full of confidence, or as we can call them now, the Ost Albstädter. Thank you for pointing out the geographic differences as well. It is a matchup between two Bavarian, Swabian sides of sorts, if you like to look at it that way. I think that Augsburg actually were very strong in their opener. I thank you for pointing that out. One big loss is the fact that Arnie Engels has reportedly been sold to Celtic, and forever ruining Paul McGarity and I's dream that Augsburg could field a midfield of Marks and Engels. So that's not happening. But I trust Frank Schmidt's rotations. Good God, has he done an incredible job with all of his new summer signings, and the way that he rotates the squad, in every week is just amazing. And Paul Vana, the Bayern loanee, who performed so well in the second half last week, has been rested in the Conference League tonight. So I think he is going to come back, and I think he's going to have another big game. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 Heidenheim victory at home.
And then moving on to the final game, which is another one that looks good on paper. I mean, Bayern Munich, Vincent Kompany's Bayern against high-flying Julian Schuster's SC Freiburg. If you can call it at this stage, they are the Spitzenreiter at this stage. But, I mean, it's still very, very early to describe them as that. But, I mean, they were the team of the week. There's no question about that, Freiburg. I thought they were absolutely brilliant. Kubler and Gunter back at fullback and rolling back the years, really, weren't they? I thought it was superb. Osterhage, who's a player that I've tipped up for a while now, and I thought he was brilliant on debut as well. And Grifo was back to his fully motivated best, to some brilliant tricks and set play deliveries. They've got strength off the bench as well. Still probably missing that top striker, Freiburg, at the minute. I mean, Adamu was probably one of the few players who didn't really impress last week. Potentially, they might go back to Hurler this week. Who knows? But anyway, it looks like a strong Freiburg side again after a disappointing campaign last year. As for Bayern, I mean, it's like, it's one of those teams that looks so strong going forward, but defensively, it's just still not working. And they concede 2 goals a game these days, it seems. The talk that Manuel Neuer isn't the keeper he was, which is natural at 38 years old, really. Kim, Upamecano just doesn't seem to work for me. I mean, will we see Eric Dyer come back into the side this week? Maybe, maybe not. But anyway, regardless of that, I do feel as though Freiburg are a side that can cause Bayern problems, and I've actually gone for them to get a 2-2 draw in this one. I think Freiburg are a little bit more wily than Wolfsburg, and I think if they're in a similar position, they will be able to hold out for a point. So what do you think, Peter?
Well, I really enjoyed talking about Freiburg on Monday's pod, and how strong they are, and what a good season we can expect from the Breisgauer here and their rookie trainer, Julian Schuster. I tipped, and you saw this online, a 3-1 Bayern victory, because I believe the tactical solutions are staring Vincent Kompany in the face. How does one deal with the strong debut from Christian Günther and Lucas Kübler? Well, what you do is you rotate out your fullbacks. I believe that Palinha will get a start over Bowie, who had that horrible second half, and I believe that Guerrero will start over Davies, so that that neutralizes the fullback problems. In terms of the defense, you mentioned that Eric Dyer will probably start above Min-Jae Kim. No problem there. Problem solved there. And Freiburg, Schuster's probably going to go with the same 11. which may not have the same creative spark that they did last week. So I believe that we have a 3-1 win for Bayern. Let's not forget how strong Harry Kane looked in the opener, involved in all 3 goals. It's going to be interesting to see how Bayern's season unfolds, of course, as you and I were talking about this in our little Pokal Super Cup thing. You and I have very, very differing opinions on how things are going to unfold this season. And we'll just can't wait to figure out who's right, huh?
Yeah. I think the whole Bayern debate is one of the big things of the season, really, because some people are super optimistic about them and they really have a lot of hope for Vincent Kompany and the new signings. But other people, particularly Premier League fans, it seems, particularly the English, are very pessimistic about, first of all, the manager and also some of the signings that they don't believe are really a Bayern Munich standard, the likes of Olise and Pauli. But we'll have to see, won't we? It's going to be one of the fascinating things to look out for this season. I mean, last week didn't really give us any answers because in parts it was brilliant and in parts it was terrible. So, it's really hard to decide based on that performance. But yeah, there you go, our list of 9 fixtures for this week. So let's just have a quick look at the fledgling table. And according to our numbers, only one team, well, according to my numbers, I should say, only one team will have a 100% record ahead of after this weekend, and that will be Borussia Dortmund, who will clock up their 2nd win in succession, according to me. The likes of Freiburg will maintain in the Champions League places, Bayern dropping down to 4th place, and the likes of Leverkusen and Augsburg still making up the top 6. Down at the bottom, there'll only be 3 teams pointless after 2 weeks, according to me, and it will be probably the 3 favourites for relegation as well, and that'll be Pauli, Bochum and Holstein Kiel. But who knows what's going to happen, Peter? How does your table look?
Well, after syncing up perfectly on the first 2 matches, we disagreed on the following 7. So my table does look very, very different. I have 3 teams in the top 4 with 100% records. That is led by Bayern, Hoffenheim, Heidenheim, and Leverkusen. Dortmund, Union Berlin, and Freiburg are rounding out in 5th, 6th, and 7th. We have Stuttgart, Leipzig, Bremen, Wolfsburg, Holstein, Kiel, and Gladbach making up mid-table. Whilst there are only 2 teams that are pointless, that will be Eintracht, Frankfurt, and St. Pauli, with Bochum and Mainz hanging above the relegation zone for now.
Interesting, yeah. I mean, a lot of people think it's pointless even having league tables at this stage of the season because I know in England it's always a debate that, because historically they only used to publish the table, I think, after the 4th or 5th week, ironically. But now, obviously, with the data technology, we see everything right in front of us on the screen. But yeah, interesting games. I hope you guys enjoy what's coming up for you this weekend. And if you enjoyed what you saw tonight, then don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on your notifications so you can see everything that we've got for you coming up. Don't forget, we are in partnership with 2 brilliant companies, Rich and Bundesliga Boxes, and then Runa and Bully News. Don't forget to check them out, as you can see in the description. Also, don't forget that we are also on Instagram as well. Check out @OverTheBarFB to follow us on there with everything that we're up to. And don't forget as well, we're still on Twitter too, @OverTheBarFB. So thank you very much, guys. Thanks to Justin, Ballum, and the other people that checked in tonight. It's been a pleasure as always. And we'll see you again on Monday with the review of all this. So see you then, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.